Welcome back to Crazy Dave's Crew. I'm Laura, and you're watching Thursday Threads. In a previous video, I showed you what I was doing with all my scraps, and I've barely made a dent, but that's okay. And I have to tell you, I am having the best time. I decided, I found I found a large amount of this yellow, and then of course I've got all kinds of other fabrics. So I decided I wanted to do a sweet pea block. So I cut 3.5-inch squares of my yellow. I cut 3.5-inch squares of assorted fabrics, and then for each of these fabrics I cut 2 1 5/8 inch squares. So we're going to make a scrappy sweet pea, and I'm having a great time. Had some trial and error, made a few mistakes, discovered how to fix them, but this is what we're going to look like. And I was thinking, oh, this would be great with white and do red, white, and blue. But I'm going to show you how I am putting these together. And today is step 1. So I'm going to start with my 3.5-inch yellow squares. I need 5 for each block. And what I've done is I'm setting up a block. Now, I normally like to do assembly line. You know, do all of this, do all of that, and then, you know, just, it takes out some of the concentration, it takes out some of the worries, you know, it just, each time I know what I'm doing. Let's pull that a little bit. I'm going to go over to my big old stack of that I've done, and I went through and I just pulled out one of the big squares, and for each big square I've got 2 little squares. So I'm going to, and it doesn't matter, you know, how it all goes. See, but I know those are where that needs to be. Let's see, and I think I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to put that one up here. One in there. And then I think that one. And you can go bright, you can go, you know, however you want to. Let's see. Oh, let's do this one. So, the first step is for me to lay it out. And now I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to leave this right here. I'm going to put all the rest of mine back for the next go around. And you can see I've got all kinds of little butterflies, some flowers, some checks. I've got a batik. I think I've got a couple vintage reproduction. I've got white, bright blues, light pinks. And I just put them together, and I only worry about this block. I just kind of look at it and go, okay, what colors are going to look good? And of course, that's subjective. Everyone has their own opinion. Now, this is where you can decide how you want to do it, but I am going to take this one. I'm going to turn it upside down. And then I'm going to sew this corner to this corner. And you see I've got some things. I'm doing my leader and ender. And I was just kind of playing with some tiny little triangles. And I'm just going to eyeball it. Perfect. And I'm just going to keep doing that on all of them until I have them all done. And if I have to double check to make sure of which side it needs to go on, then I take the time to do that. I could have some videos playing in the background. I could have music. I have a movie, a TV show. Not a new one. If I do a new TV show or a new movie, then, you know, which one am I paying attention to? So I've done all 4 of them. Now I'm just going to take a couple of these and put the other side on. So I'm going to do that, and I will be right back. So all 4 of my yellow squares, because you don't count the center one, I now have my 2 corner pieces on. I'm going to, I know my next project is going to have a bunch of 2.5-inch squares sewn together. So that is my leader and ender, and I'm doing a lot of red, white, and blues. I could do some flowers. Go over my pen. But because I know this is my next project, that's what I'm using as my leader and ender. And if you're not sure about leaders and enders, I have done a video on that. And I really like them. It feels like, you know, all of a sudden you've got a quilt top that you didn't even work on. And no, you don't waste a whole lot of thread, but every little bit. Alright, so now, okay, I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch away from the seam. I'm going to cut all these. And I am quite certain some people are going to go, ah, you can't do it like that. I am. If I did this right, they're all, okay, so instead of me having to do 8, I'm only going to do 2. I'm going to do a quick press. And one of the mistakes that I discovered is I had my iron on too high of a setting. and it was kind of wrinkling and shrinking my yellow, and I was having fits. I did not know what I was doing wrong. I tried making them bigger. Alright, so I've got a 1/4 inch. Right there is where my seam is, and I'm just going to cut that off. Now, I was messing with this earlier. Of sewing these together. These are a little bit smaller than, you know, what we normally think of as usable scraps, but, and it's not like I have, you know, nothing to do. I have lots to do. But I am kind of throwing those over in a pile, and you know, maybe those will be my leaders and enders. Maybe I can do something with them. Oop. Missed a section. Note to self, change out your rotary blade. So I'm going to press all these open, and then I'll show you what the next step is. All right, so here we are. Ta-da! Now, what I've done in the past, previously here, I would just put them all together and make it a stack. So these are all blocks ready to go to be sewn together. So kind of an assembly line. But we're not going to do that today. We're going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and sew these together. So the next step, if you guess that it's to sew these 3 together, these 3 together, these 3 together, and then put it together like a 9 patch, you are right. And I am so happy that the light bulb went off in my head that, you know, maybe my heat is too high. Because now everything is just measuring up so beautifully. So some of my first ones may have to go into my orphan box and do something else with them. But for these, I'm going to sew these together, and then we'll take a look at the final project. So we're going to sew that one down, and that one down, and that one down. And I am not going to make y'all watch me just, you know, sew seams. But we'll just come down these, and then I'll add on the third pieces, and we'll put them together. And I will show you the finished product in just a second. Just want to point out that I didn't want this to be pressed in this way, so I pressed them outward away from the yellow. And in the center, I pressed inward so that, just move it along. Oh, there we go. I've got my nested seam. And now that I've done that, I will put these together. Alright, well, I am not 100% sure about this, so how I'm going to put some things together, so I'm not pressing this down, but here is the wrinkled, non-pressed version of what we just worked on. Ta-da! And as you can see, this doesn't take up much scrap. They're just small pieces. I was at Joann's the other day. I needed some batting, and I noticed that they didn't have a whole lot of remnants because everything was at 75% off. So that was kind of interesting. But I usually love getting the remnants. And where we trimmed off, you know, the corners of these, and we had all those little triangles, I kind of goofed off a little bit. But look at that. So, I mean, we could, if we wanted to. It would be tedious. It would take time. But there you go. You could make up some some blocks of the little squares and add that into your totally scrappy orphan top, if that's what you were so inclined to do. This could even be maybe something for the border of this particular top. So there's actually a lot of things that you could do if you were so inclined to do it. It could be kind of a cool border. A lot of trimming, a lot of squaring up. But it could be fun. I'm really liking this pattern. It is called a sweet pea pattern. And there are varieties. Obviously, you can make these smaller. You can make them bigger. You know, whatever your druthers is. Very versatile. It is not very forgiving. Because like I said, I've got some where I had too high heat and it messed up the yellow fabric. Shrunk it, it distorted it, and that made it very difficult to get uniform blocks so that they would all, you know, go up together. So, step 1 of our Scrappy Sweet Pea quilt top is completed. Be sure to come back next time, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do putting these together. I hope you've been inspired. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I definitely hope that you will come back and find us next time right here on Crazy Dave's Crew. Thank you so much for watching.